Welcome to Ask Dr. Change. I'm Dr. Linda Ackerman Anderson. I'm happy to have you join me today to explore how to seriously uplevel your leadership and consulting to transformational changes, all through conscious change leadership. Welcome. Today's episode is a very special opportunity for me personally. I'm here with Donna Brighton. Donna is a very critical person in our field, in the change world. I met Donna when Donna was the executive director of the Association of Change Management Professionals. We became certainly colleagues and dear friends ever since. So Donna, tell us a little bit about you and who you are, and then we'll dive in.
Fabulous. Thanks, Linda. And I'm so thrilled to be here today. So I'm the founder of Brighton Leadership Group, and we focus on building leadership capability, cultivating high-performing teams, building strong cultures for sustainable organizations. And what's really fun is that we've worked with organizations from Kraft Foods to Guardian, the Mayo Clinic, IKEA, all the way to startups, not-for-profits, carve-outs, even an Indian tribe. And what's cool is the thing they all have in common is people. Because my purpose in life is connecting people with other people and ideas to transform their lives and organizations. So no matter the trajectory of my career, I have stayed true to that purpose and really lived along that. So there's so many fun things I'm looking forward to talking about with you today, Linda.
Wonderful. Well, I'm thrilled to have you here, and I really appreciate you doing this with me. I want to ask you to go back a ways. What brought you to this field? How did this work actually begin for you?
So I'll give you the abbreviated version. When I went to college, I studied accounting because I really wanted to understand, seriously, I wanted to understand business, right? Because I felt like, well, they say whoever has the gold makes the rules. So I thought maybe whoever counted the gold, maybe would learn about the rules. So I got into accounting, and then through a variety of circumstances, I worked at Coopers and Lybrand. Then I went on and worked, and I got in at the beginning of the ERP movement. So just as computers were becoming more popular and a lot of organizations were taking their accounting software from being green paper to being online systems. So that transitioned me into project management. I ran a PeopleSoft practice, and we were implementing PeopleSoft, and I saw the value and power of project management. But for me, something was missing in that, right? So we would hit the implementation, but it was like, there's something more. So that is really where I got involved in change management and recognized the importance of not just installing a change and getting that system up and running, but also, oh yeah, there's people. And if people aren't brought along and aren't part of this process, that's a problem. So that started my transition, if you will, from just focusing on project management, really brought me into the discipline of change management. And then I also came to understand, while change management is incredibly important, focusing on that people dynamic, culture is also essential. And for me, that's an element that it's often left out of change work that is being done, because culture is going to help or hinder your change efforts. So from my work in change management, I actually then really pursued my interest in culture and combined those, right? So for example, I did a project with an organization where they were implementing in a new strategy and wanted us to come in and do some change work. And we said, we can't do that. Because until you're clear on your culture and you know where that culture is going to support your strategy or potentially take away from that, we can't do the change, because we need to understand your culture. So that's kind of a little bit of my evolution and my passion. And I like to say the integration of all of that. So project management's about getting results, change is about the people. And essentially all of that combines into leadership, which is truly my passion, because leadership is where it's at.
Beautiful. That's just great. Thank you. So where do you see the field going now? The change management field, change leadership. You've been deeply enmeshed in conscious change leadership with us. Where do you see the field going now?
Is it a great question? It's one of those where we all want certainty, right? Like, what are the next 10 years going to look like? And one thing I can promise everyone is more change. So, where I see the field going is, Linda, in one of the really, really helpful illustrations, is how you explained the different types of change. That was an incredible aha for me, because if you just think change is change and you don't understand the distinctions between the types of change, too many leaders are managing change that's happening today, which is transformational change, like they would have managed a change from years ago, which is just, a little bit of a transactional change. It's like an evolution versus a revolution. So I see more and more transformational change occurring. And as a result, the skill sets for that are vastly different from just a regular change management approach.
So give us a little bit more. Now I'm hungry. What more do you see in order to be able to lead transformational change successfully? What's the edge that you're seeing in the field for that?
So I really see a conscious mastery of the leader, it's themselves. And we've been kind of moving in that direction to some extent. I believe personally, in order to be as effective as possible as a leader, it all starts with self-mastery and truly understanding yourself. How are you showing up? And in today's world, I mean, there's a little overview that I give in some of my sessions where I talk about the percentage of influence that your emotions have over the climate of that environment. And it's a staggering amount, right? So for leaders who are not managing themselves well, I say it's kind of like they're sliming the organization and their teams around them with their emotions and everything that's going on with them. So part of that, the skill sets necessary for successful transformation, it starts with the leader themselves.
Beautiful. So raising their own consciousness, their own ability to manage themselves in the moment, and
Yes.
it's particularly their emotional energy that they're conveying as they're leading.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because part of transformational change is you're moving to a destination where you don't really know where you're going, right? Like you kind of are like charting a course toward the distant direction, but you keep people engaged based on energetically how you're interacting with them. And so if you allow all of the things that you're experiencing to just spill out so onto others, that's a problem. And I one of the questions I like to ask leaders is, what are people catching from you? Right. So in this day and age, it's flu season or whatever that people are catching. I'm like, as a leader, what are people catching from you? Are they catching your enthusiasm? Are they catching your frustration and the other emotions that might come along with that?
Yeah, great. What does it say, all of that, about the process of leading transformation? How are you seeing that evolve?
So I heard Bob Johansen from the Institute of the Future say something that really challenged me. And he talked about how certainty is the enemy of the future and success. And I was like, what? And he talked about the importance of being clear. So clarity is clear, but certainty, although we all crave it, it's not possible. So that led me to think, wow, so what are some of the skills? Well, I need to be really clear about myself, about the direction we're moving in, things like that. But it's the certainty that we used to have in the past of leadership styles from years past. It's not going to work anymore, because with the amount of change and with transformational change, you can't be certain about much.
Absolutely. And so, how does a leader adapt, adjust to certainty or to the lack of certainty, but the desire for clarity?
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those self-management skills, and it's it's an opportunity for a leader to create certainty where possible, but at the same time be realistic. So I'll give you an example. This morning I was talking with the CEO and his leadership team, and they're about to announce another kind of segment of a larger change. So that's something really important, I think is critical in today's day and age. We can have death by 1,000 change messages. So, right, like clarity about the overall direction. So when we started working together, we said, what is the big picture view directionally of where you're going? You might not know all the details, but at least where's your North Star? So we're about to kind of share this other dimension of that North Star change. And one of the leaders said, well, can we say this is the finish line? Like this is the final change. And I just smiled, and the CEO was like, I don't want to create a false finish. Right. So, yeah. So in terms of creating certainty, we all want to say, that's it. The change is done. We're good to go now. What you can be certain about is that change is never going to end. Now, back to how can leaders create that certainty? They can create certainty in how they lead. For example, on such and such a date, we're going to get together and I'm going to share with you what I know. And then on that date, whether you know something or not, you get together and you share what you know. But it's a delicate balance, Linda, because on the flip side of that, I've also experienced times where leaders shared everything they knew as they learned about it, and people got tired of hearing about it. It's like, just tell me when you really know something. I don't want to keep hearing about it all along the way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's back to certainty versus clarity. I say keep focusing on the clarity. Here's where we're going. Here's what we're doing. Here's what you need to understand. And then as the bits of certainty emerge, then they can share that.
Beautiful. So you've stepped into my next question, which is, what advice, tips, guidance would you give? I'm going to ask for leaders, and then I'm going to ask for consultants, given your depth of experience. What do you think leaders right now need to be cognizant of to be able to cope with the changing environment we live in?
So one of my passions is questions. And in the past, it was possible for a leader to have a pretty good handle on everything that was going on and be able to strategically know how to respond to what was going on. Today, because of the sheer volume and amount of change, there's no one human that can know everything and really stay on top of it. And so if a leader doesn't maintain a mindset of curiosity and openness, they're not going to be able to move forward and lead transformational change. So I guess the skill set is the mindset is curiosity, and the skill set is question asking. And just to build on that, these are not questions that are browbeating people into believing your point of view. Like, don't you think we should do this? That's not the kind of question I'm talking about.
There's no inquiry in that.
Yes. I'm talking about the questions as a leader where you're really staying open to the possibility and carefully listening to what you're hearing. So rather than coming in with a predetermined mindset, that curiosity and that question asking is a core skill. And so something I like to ask leaders is, what's the amount of your asking versus telling? Because and here's why that's important, is because as an individual contributor, when you begin your career, you're successful because you tell people things from whatever it is that you do, right? You're accomplishing things, you're delivering things. That's why you get paid as an individual contributor. But as you move into a role of leader, you need to be asking more questions than you are telling.
Excellent. How about for consultants? What guidance would you have for consultants in this day and age?
So for consultants, I guess I would share a couple things. And I say this is actually applicable to everyone. But as a consultant, it can feel just really overwhelming in terms of, like, what am I accomplishing? How am I helping move things forward? And you can know that, right, based on your timelines and schedules. And I've checked off my deliverables. But my encouragement to consultants is to keep a weekly win list. Because I feel in today's day and age, there's so much that's happening. It's really easy to start measuring yourself by what you haven't accomplished versus what you have accomplished. And the only person who's going to know all those things is you. So that's interesting. There's almost a reticence to brag about yourself. But as a mentor of ours told us, we have no music if you don't blow your own horn. So It's very key to blow your own horn and to do that appropriately. So when you need to brag on yourself, if you haven't kept a record, you don't know what your accomplishments are. And the other beautiful thing about that is that it starts showing you patterns and themes throughout all that you've accomplished. So it's a wonderful way, tracking your weekly wins, of reminding yourself of all that you have accomplished and all that you are becoming. And the second thing I would recommend is maintaining a learning journal. So, true confession, I love learning. Yes, all the books behind my head. I read. And I indulged in quite a bit of random acts of learning. And while it's fabulous to learn and be very open minded to all that you're going to learn, there's only so much time. And so, my encouragement is saying what is most important for you to focus on and learn. And then put yourself a learning plan together and figure out, where is it that I need to invest more time in? You know, is it AI? Is it some building on my communication skills? And you can pick a monthly, a quarterly theme, whatever it is, and then go find the best resources and learn and grow and become the best in that area, and then take on a new learning challenge. So rather than just indulging in those random acts like, oh, that looks like a fun book, be intentional about it.
Donna, one of the things that I have admired about you since knowing you is that you put a degree of structure into your evolution, into your growth, into your learning, like that, a learning journal, or the wins for the week. And you have done that in so many avenues in your life. Which have been the most powerful for you in terms of really impacting the quality of your life?
So I would say the habits and intentionality are key, Linda. But even more than a specific habit is the intentionality of the dot connecting. So the saying, where is it that I want to end up? Not just what do I want to accomplish, but who do I want to be or become? And then what are the habits that are going to make that happen? And so the practice that has been incredibly helpful is reviewing, what are my current habits? What are the things I'm spending my time on? And are they leading me in the direction that's most important to me? It's really easy for us to get caught in patterns and habits that aren't serving the direction that we think we want to go in. So yes, Linda, I'm a huge believer in intentionality and structure, and true confession, I kind of need it myself. um, so my husband always thought I was a really disciplined person, because he was like, well, and I, back in the day, right, I had the Franklin Covey planner and I like had all my lists and organized. I was like, no, you have to understand that's my backup, because otherwise my life is chaos. So it was more of a response than it was really good at intentionality. But I've learned over the years, I have to build in those processes and systems and in levels of intentionality, or things don't happen, right? We don't move in the directions that we intend. It's the waves of life that take us in the direction it wants to. So I really believe in being intentional.
Beautiful. It's just great, Donna. All of what you describe requires a real discipline of self-observation, self-awareness. How am I doing things? What am I after? Am I clear about that? What's working for me? What's not working for me?
Mm-hmm.
Again, you have been a great model of that for many of us in the profession. I really admire that about you.
Thank you. Thank you. And so I back to my question, my passion for questions. I literally have thousands of them. So I'm a question collector. And what I think amazing questions can do is really provoke new lenses, new ways of seeing. So that's part of my encouragement to everyone who's listening. Start building yourself a library of questions, right? Like, what do you hear that challenges you, that encourages you, that makes you see something different? And I think that's an amazing, amazing way of doing the self-discovery and observation that you were talking about, Linda.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here. What are the most critical questions you're exploring now?
So I am very fascinated about midlife transition and Curious because I believe there's value in every stage of life. So the questions I'm currently kind of pursuing is what's possible now. The questions I'm pursuing is how to ensure that my lifespan and my health span kind of match. And the questions I'm pursuing are really, how do I leverage all of what I've done, all of who I am, and bring that together to serve the world in a better way? So I've really been reflecting on that because I think that is the power of people over 50. And it's an opportunity that I really believe people need challenged to think differently, not just about retirement and not just about, oh, I can't wait to be done with whatever, but how can you show up with all the gifts that you've been given in who you are and what you've done and do something different for the world?
That's beautiful. So, what is the discipline in your daily life to be able to have that reflection time? Is it just reflection? Is it writing? Is it meditating? What's the discipline in your life to do those things?
Yeah. So I have to set aside time. I believe that your calendar and your checkbook reflect your priorities. And I can say that I really value reflection, but if I don't build it into my calendar, it doesn't happen. So I have like a monthly reflection. I actually like put it on my calendar. So like the first of every month, it shows up that these are the things I need to do and transition into a new month. I do that quarterly. And then on a daily basis, I mean, am I perfect about it? No, but I make sure I start my day in with quiet practices. And I want to talk about that, reflecting back to one of your questions, Linda, where you were saying, what are the things that leaders or change practitioners need to do today? There's so much conversation right now about well-being, about overwhelm, stress, burnout. And I heard this fantastic definition where overwhelm or burnout occurs when demands exceed your resources. And that was really profound to me because it made me start thinking right back to the questions, where did those resources come from? And where do the demands come from? And how do I help resource myself better? So back to my habits and routines, I've been really reflecting on what are the things I need to incorporate into my life, habits, rhythms, patterns, questions, reflection, in order to ensure that I have the resources to meet the demands that are coming my way. And I feel like too many times, whether it's a leader or a change consultant, it's really easy to sacrifice ourselves on the altar of, delivery or accomplishment or result. And so you're left in a crumpled, disastrous mess that takes 10 times as long to recover, right? I'm sure you can think of many times that's happened to you. I've done it, right? Where it's like you just pour all out and you are so invested in whatever that external thing is you're responsible for, and you've done nothing to nourish yourself. And so I feel like that is one of the critical skills, is being able to set the boundaries to say, here's what I need, and what you need may be different than what I need, and that's okay. But the reality is, yourself. So set the boundaries, set the rhythms. And so back to my daily routines is really paying attention to what nourishes me, what brings me joy, what are the practices I need to step into a situation as resourced as possible. And Linda, that sounds like I'm doing a really amazing job. I will confess, there are times, right? And I just had this situation last week where I was meeting somebody for the first time, and I had not appropriately resourced myself, meaning I was not in that mindset to really engage in the way I needed to. I powered up on this person and I was like going to just show them how smart I was. And at the end of the conversation, I was like, what just happened to myself, right? Like, that was not me. I did not show up the way I wanted to. And recognizing that I had not taken the time to slow down, be reflective, and prepare to show up and do my best. So that's the difference, right? If we don't resource ourselves, if we don't do the things, the practices, and the habits, then we do a less quality job. We don't show up as ourselves. And so the world's not getting our best work.
Uh, Not only are you a change coach, you're a life coach. Just living your life with more fulfillment and more, as you say, resourcing of yourself. Really beautiful,
Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
Really beautiful.
But Linda, if I can point out there, so this is one of the myths that people have. They talk about work-life balance. So let's do some myth busting, if you will. I don't believe in that. So what I believe is that we have to harmonize our work life and our personal life. And in harmony, right? It doesn't mean everything sounds the same. In harmonies, there's highs and lows, you know what I mean, in order to have beautiful music. So that to me is a really important practice, is just recognizing the harmony of life and making the choices that you need to live um, at your best and show up as your best and do your best work. So when I got my master's in organizational leadership, my whole thesis was on something I called holistic leadership. And my concept was being all of who you are, bringing your whole self fully integrated, because that's how you show up in your best and strongest way. So rather than leading from a small little sliver of who you are, when you can do it from the fully integrated self, it just shows up more authentically and more powerfully, and you can sustain that better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to ask you about the more than toe dipping that you and your husband Scott have done in the AI world and your experience with that. It's of great interest to our audience these days.
Yes. So it actually connects to a fascinating skill that I've been kind of turning over into my head. So you were asking before about, like, as a leader, as a change professional, what are some of the skills that we need to have? So I'm not going to tell you it's AI, although I think AI is amazing. The skill is, it really connects to transition capability. So do you have mastery of your capability to move through transition? And can you do that, right? Whether it's through moving, whether it's a new technology. So there's all these changes that are going to be thrown at us, right? And so that would be my challenge to your listeners. Are you mastering your transition capability? Now, one of the ways that we're mastering our transition capability is in AI. I guess my biggest learning was that it is not something that goes out and retrieves things for you. It's actually a thinking partner. So it's been a really big mindset shift for me to work with it in the context of, how do I use, like, prompt it and engage with it in such a way that it's bringing out the information that I need, so then I can take my creativity and continue to improve it. So I feel that AI is not going to eliminate jobs. What AI does is kind of the base work. And by engaging with it well, that base work, then we can bring our best and highest selves to transform it. So whether it's in, like, creating a communication plan, right? So how many times as part of an overarching change project, right? You're sitting there and you're like, okay, I need to figure all this out. It's like, you can just interact. And here's another cool thing that I've been using it for, is actually having it interview me. So
Ah,
you can set up AI and give it a context and say, we're going to work together to accomplish whatever it is. So whether it's telling a story. So one of the things that we've been working on is putting together client success stories of some of the great work that we've done and the results we've helped clients achieve. And those are always really hard to remember and figure out, like, what is it that I did? I don't know. So I tell AI, here's who you are. You're interviewing me one question at a time. It asks me a question, I tell it the answer, and we go back and forth, and then it writes a story for me. So
awesome.
yeah, it's been
Awesome.
really fun.
Yeah, yeah. What vehicles are you using to be able to do that, Donna?
So right now, we're using the paid version of ChatGPT with some prompt engineer tools that were kind of like custom built and created. And the reason for that is because we're programming and putting all of our learning and our insight and our IP into it in order to leverage that. So there's a lot of neat applications for it. I say that AI doesn't take the place of people. I mean, use it for what it's worth. It's really about leveraging it's data analysis and aggregation, right? So we do a lot of work with organizations and assessing culture, for example. So we can get a ton of data back. And what I believe the value I provide to my clients is not how well I analyze the data, it's the insights that I bring them from the data analysis. So in the past, where it could have taken me 2 or 3 days to go through and process all the numbers and say this plus this, oh yeah, and then we've got this, and really make sense so that I have insights, and then I can take those insights and make recommendations. AI can magically take all of that data, do the synthesis. Now you have to double check it because it can have hallucinations, which means providing false information back. So we always double check everything to make sure it's tracking and figuring things correctly. But because it does all that data crunching for us, we can just take the output and say, all right, now that we have these insights, let's have the conversation with the client. So we're doing meaningful work versus all the analysis.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. And your clients know that you're using this vehicle to support them?
That's a great question. Depends on what the tool is, and it's so if it's just crunching data, probably not. But there are some tools that we use in terms of recommendations from the culture work, and that is very specifically and clearly AI generated. And here's one of the reasons, and I think this is a great conversation in terms of the ethical boundaries, right? Like what do you need to talk about? So in my view, using AI in that fashion is sort of like taking a bunch of data and putting it in a database and having the database crunch some scenarios for you so that you get information back. So I'm using it not to like give the recommendations, but in order to enable me to more rapidly reach a point of insight and awareness, so then I can go do the work with the client.
Yeah, it's a support mechanism.
Yeah. But if it was the one making the recommendations, I think that ethically you should probably be disclosing that.
Yeah, good. Agree. What are you finding holding leaders back today? What are the biggest challenges you have for getting them to see what they need to see?
So a couple of things come to mind. There's one particular situation. It's a leader who's encountering a change of a magnitude he's never experienced before. And he's never had an unsuccessful change that he's encountered. And so I'm very concerned because there's almost a hubris or an overconfidence in their belief that they're able to handle the change. So that, I believe, is something that's going to hold them back from achieving the level of success that they could. And see, that's part of the challenge, Linda, is like, what is success, right? So if you get to installation, if it's a new system, well, the system's in, so it must have been a good change, right? Well, how much more successful could it have been, right? And in this case, it's a very significant organizational change. I don't think they're ready for it, but they don't know they're not ready for it. So that's one issue. And I feel like that ties back to the point we were talking where curiosity is really key. What don't I know?
Yeah.
Right.
So how do you go about supporting them to open their eyes to the circumstances they're stepping into?
So questions are a key part of that. And one of the reasons I'm passionate about questions is because questions open the mind, answers close the mind, which is why if I'm as the consultant, just telling the client what they need to do, that gets me nowhere. So the goal is to open their minds, and that comes from questions. Another quote that I love is that people may agree with your opinion, but they only act on their own opinion. And so how do I ask the questions that unlock their mind enough to create some curiosity that help them wonder what they don't know or what might be possible? And so one of the ways in the Change Leader Roadmap, there's some excellent questions. And I've actually used that with a leadership team so that I've asked them the questions, what kind of change are you going through and how are you prepared? And just asking them the questions, and guaranteed when you ask a leadership team a series of questions, there's always inconsistencies. So being able to bring that data back to the team and say, hey, I had this conversation and everybody, some people think it's this kind of change. So what really is it? And then that opens their mind to the conversation. What most people are resistant to is data that isn't their own. So that's what I love about the questions in the Change Leader Roadmap is I'm able to bring those into the situation, and through those the conversations with the questions that lead to their own answers that show the disparate points of view, that starts the conversation.
Yeah, beautiful, really. And a great use of the Change Leaders Roadmap. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's great. Great.
So that's one of the roadblocks holding leaders back now. I would also say something that I've been curious about and exploring is this idea of fear of other people's opinions. And it's a mindset, yes, but there's also, and so here it takes a couple different forms, right? It can be the leader who's very prideful to cover that up, right? Or it could be somebody that's insecure. So there's all different manifestations of it. But I think it's quite fascinating when people are more driven by what everyone else is thinking rather than being clearly tuned into themselves. Okay. And so one of the antidotes to that, as I've been researching and learning, is being truly clear on your own purpose and, or excuse me, your own identity. Like, who am I? Like, really clear on that. And then purpose, right? A purpose bigger than yourself. So for a leader who's wanting to make a change, it's not just, I want to make a change because it's successful. I want to, do this transformation because it really matters. Why does it matter? What's the bigger picture? How is it going to benefit the world, your team, asking it at that level and really being tuned in helps you break away, because more than ever, I think we're being assaulted by other people's perspectives and points of view. And a lot of them are not worth listening to. And so if you're not truly clear and aligned within yourself and you're able to disregard the things that can be disregarded, I mean, you need to stay open to listen and learn. But I'm saying, there can be, the higher you are in a leadership position, the more brutal those conversations can be.
For sure. So knowing what is motivating you, what's the fuel driving you towards fulfillment, whatever success looks like for you. With so many disparate voices around us, every which way. So if you can't start with clarity within, you're lost.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And it's a chance, and, the whole conversation we were having about shifting as you're getting older, you get to have new questions. You get to have new ways of thinking, right? Instead of focusing on, I am what I do, which is around achievement, or I am what other people say I am, which is your image, right? Or I am what I have, my status and possessions, right? Or I am what I control, my power. It's like the opportunity to move beyond that and get clear about your identity at a different level, and then operate from that space.
Beautiful. So would you share some of the descriptions you have of your own identity, how you see yourself?
That's an excellent question, Linda. And in full transparency, that's something I feel like I've been in my pursuit and curiosity, something that I've really been reimagining. So I can't say that I have any instant statements right now. I'm really trying to shift away from, connecting who I am with all that I've done, right? You mentioned that idea of fulfillment, because you can lean your success ladder against achievement, but achievement is not the same as fulfillment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
I'm just going to say, years ago, with a client that was so active, do. And I wrote up on the chart, being first, flipped it over, doing first, and to get their awareness that they were doing machines, and that was it. And there was no sense of self or reflection going on whatsoever. So I hear what you're saying, that you're moving away from reflecting on, not doing, reflecting on, perceiving on it, but to see what is underneath all of that, what's most meaningful to you.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a transition because I believe like your first few decades is really where that, where we start learning that's where our worth comes from. And then you spend the rest of your life unlearning that.
Marvelous. How about holdbacks for consultants?
What not to do?
Or what's holding consultants back from being able to really take on the future we're living in?
Yeah. So my mentor always said the first sale is to yourself. So having the inner confidence that you are good enough, that you know enough, and that you can show up and deliver great value, right? Because I don't feel as a consultant, I'm necessarily paid for the solutions I create. I'm paid for the value that I create. And that can evolve and look differently depending upon, what you're doing and who you're working with. So it's a really interesting question in terms of how you perceive yourself when you show up with your clients, right? So it needs to be as a peer. It needs to be, I'm bringing you value. It needs to be, I'm curious and listening and I'm here to help. And the other thing that can hold consultants back is the need to see their solution, their answer, their whatever implemented. It can be so frustrating, right? Where the right answer. It's like, and one of the reasons I love serving as a consultant is because I'm addicted to learning. I love learning. And for me, my passion of being a consultant means I'm in lots of different environments. So I'm learning constantly in all these different places and spaces from different leaders. And so I bring value. I want to share with you these amazing things that I've learned. And a lot of times people are resistant, right? They're like, yep, thanks, that's great. So it's important for consultants not to get despondent because the solution they knew was going to be the right answer is not what the client followed.
Yeah. So detaching their ego from the advice that they're giving,
Yes.
more facilitative, as you say. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so if you think of yourself as a guide and a support and you bring forward, here's some different options and here's the potential consequences. And remember, they get to choose, right? Because they are living with the consequences of their choice, not you. And they're paying me for the value, and the value I create is not necessarily them implementing my solution. But that's a sticky point that I find a lot of people get frustrated with.
For sure. For sure. Well, you've created an enormous amount of value for us today. I often think of you as, the Christmas ball that you unwrap and more gifts keep coming out and you keep unwrapping and more gifts keep coming out and coming out. You are a Christmas ball, Donna, filled filled with so much insight. So I deeply appreciate that so much. I wonder if you have last thoughts that last gifts you'd like to share, last learnings you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I'm going to tie that into my recommendation for the learning journal. So again, definitely everyone, I highly recommend you keep your weekly wins because over time you will be in awe of all that you've accomplished and it will share more with you about yourself. But the learning journal matters for this reason. I think it was in Cotter's Leading Change, and it has nothing to do with change and everything to do with leadership. It's the last chapter and it's my favorite. And he talks about compounded learning, which is the first time I'd ever heard that concept. And I love it. So here's the idea that just like you put money in the bank and over time it expands, right? It compounds because of the interest rate. When you invest in your learning and invest in your growth and invest in your personal change and transformation, that compounds over time. So you can transform yourself through your learning. And so that's my encouragement to all of your listeners. Really invest in yourself and your learning because it can take you places that you never imagined and dreamed.
Beautiful. Just beautiful, Donna. Thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself with us today. This has been an absolute pleasure to hear from you, to explore with you, and I deeply appreciate you spending time with us today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Linda. It was a delight, and maybe next time I can ask you some questions.
Ah, that sounds like fun. Take care. Thank you. Today's subject is one of the key topics that we feature in our Leading Transformational Change online program. If you'd like to learn more about leading transformational change, go to beingfirst.com/LTC. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope you gained some valuable insights for your work. Please send me your questions and challenges by going to askdrchange.com.